So project life cycles, we briefly had a look at a project life cycle in lecture 3, but what we're going to do now is try and identify the main stages or the phases or the steps in a project and try and understand why we have these stages or phases in a project. A project goes through distinct phases. Somebody has the idea for the project, the light bulb moments where they have an inception. This would be a good idea. Then that project will get initiated, and I've got a picture of a senior manager there who's going to authorize this project to proceed. And of course, they have the right there to say, no, that sounds like a good idea, but it doesn't suit our company. We're not doing the project. We then execute the project, hand it over to the operations or for use, and then the project is closed down. Now, when we look at life cycles in the many project management books, they will use different words, but they will mean the same thing. Let's have a look at a couple of examples of projects in project life cycles. Let's use the Birmingham Northern Relief Road, or the Birmingham Toll Road, that goes around the M6. It's an alternative to using the M6, but it costs you a fair amount of money. Incidentally, nobody uses it. Now, somebody identified in the 1970s that the motorway through Birmingham was going to be overcrowded and an alternative route was required. So the idea for the project is 30, 40, 50 years old. The project took a long time to get through its initiation phase before construction started. There's planning permissions, there's legal challenges, there's debates, there's how is it going to be funded, and of course the answer is we'll make it a toll road is one of the ways of getting it funded. But eventually somebody said, yes, let's build the road, and the construction took perhaps less than 2 years, 2 to 3 years perhaps. The road is now in operation. It's handed over to the operators who are collecting the fees for drivers to use the road, and it will be in operation perhaps for 50 years before eventually it's going to be replaced by the next mode of transport. Another example could be a nuclear power station. Of course, a nuclear power station takes 5 to 10 years to build, but a country will have an idea about its electricity generation requirements, and it could take 5 to 10 years to actually get approval for construction of nuclear power stations. It might take 10 to 15 years to get it fully operational. It might have a life of 20, 25, perhaps 30 years, and then the shutdown period, the decommissioning period for power stations, well, that's really unknown. It could be thousands of years due to the radioactivity. Other projects could be good ideas. Wouldn't it be a good idea if, go to the senior management, they say, yes, do it. Plan it 3 months later, the project's finished. Okay, the project phases, the main chunks of work, are divided by the project milestones. The milestone is a key decision point where the senior manager says, this project looks okay at this point, it can continue into the next phase. So here I've used different words for the phases of a project: inception, conception, feasibility, realization, operation, termination. And as we reach each milestone, sometimes called a gateway, the senior management can compare how your project is progressing to previous projects and suggest that perhaps you need to do some more planning before you can get to the next phase, or perhaps suggest that you are okay to proceed to the next phase because your plans are sufficient. So here's a more detailed look at the center part of our project life cycle. We have the phases, and in the blue ovals there, we have the different milestones. So the feasibility phase, we've decided to split it into two: the initial review and a more detailed appraisal, with a decision point in the middle. The phases and the milestones of a project. Now, there are lots of different project life cycles, but really what I'm saying here is every author likes to create their own project life cycle using different words. They're the same thing. So here's an example of a project life cycle: initial idea instead of conception, development, design, operation, decommissioning. It's just the different words for the same thing. Here's one from Archibald: concept, definition, design, manufacture, installation. A project life cycle. Here's one from Webster. Webster is comparing a product life cycle with a project life cycle. But essentially, some of the words in here: feasibility, design, production, termination, they're the same. This is Kerzner. We talked about Kerzner in the first lecture, and we said he'd written a lot of project management books. And here he is looking at the research and development product life cycle, and he's defining a project as the conceptual, the definition, the production, the operation, and the divestment or the closure of the project. Here's another version. This one's called Allen's project life cycle: project initiation, project definition, project implementation, project completion, separated by key decision points. This is Morris's project lifespan. Perhaps I should say, I'm not going to assess you on all of these different project life cycles. They're just different examples that are really the same thing. A project has an idea, it goes through to feasibility, we design it, we buy the things, we commission it, we complete the project. This project life cycle, Cooper, Edgbert, and Kleinschmidt, calls it a stage gate process. And very often an organization, instead of calling it phases and milestones, will have project stages separated by gates. Gates, gateways. Can I go through this gateway to get to the next stage? And these decision points or gates are the key decision points by management. Fish's V-shaped model, another example, where we've got a discovery of something, some requirements, and we go through the project until we get to close out. The project life cycle. The phases will be the long periods of time when you're working on the project. They could be days, they could be weeks, or they could be months. The project milestones, or the gateways, will be those key decision points. They're key meetings. It could be a 2-hour meeting. It could be a yes-no decision for the project. Or it could be a review. The senior management will decide, does this project proceed? And this is a good way of the senior management comparing Project A with Project B. Project A went on to be successful. Project B might go on to be a failure. So when they look at Project C, they can compare its status against Project A and Project B. In this way, projects can be more successful as we go through time. So project life cycles are a really important part of project management.